Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dave Hafner, and I am a moonshiner. When I say that I'm a moonshiner, what I'm talking about is I've actually designed and built my own still. I've been creating high grain alcohol for biofuel over the last 5 years. I can't tell you the types of reactions that I get actually when I tell people that I am a moonshiner. So I want to take you through a few things that I've been compared to. Uncle Jesse. I get plenty of Dukes of Hazzard jokes. It's always a good time. Popcorn Sutton.
Oh,
He's a favorite of mine. He's actually a very famous moonshiner out in Appalachia. Just recently died. Kind of a hero, personal hero of mine. Purdy Mouth, guy from Deliverance.
Yes.
Deliverance jokes, people, always good. Keep them coming. And of course, revenuers. We're always running for our life for revenuers. Really, this is kind of in jest, but it really undercuts how important alcohol has been to us as a society. We always hear about negative things that alcohol does. So I wanted to take these few minutes really to kind of describe how I create alcohol, how society has created alcohol, and how it's been a true benefit to us as opposed to the scourge which it's often kind of made into. The two parts of creating alcohol really comes down to fermentation and distillation. And with fermentation, yeast is the star of the show. So there's a gentleman, and I find it hilarious that his first name is Cletus. But Dr. Cletus Kirkman actually wrote the seminal work on yeast, and it's called the Yeast Handbook. He wrote this about 10 years ago. It chronicles 1,500 different types of yeast you can find all over the world. And really, his main focus is on the fact that we've been using yeast in Sumerian societies, in Egyptian societies, maybe up to 8,000 years ago. So fermented products were actually what you would bring to the pharaoh when you went to visit him. It truly was the elixir of the gods, and an important part. It got more and more sophisticated as we went on. By the time you reach about the 1790s with the Dutch had actually created their own strains of yeast. So you could actually go in to a store and buy yeast. So it's that important. So this is a very simple reaction that yeast pulls off, but it's incredibly powerful. And I think it's the simplicity is what makes it powerful. Anybody can do it. You can do it anywhere. Literally, you can get a hold of yeast that will bring about alcohol production simply by dragging the materials outside. It's in everything that we do when we breathe. So if you take yeast and you put it with sugar, and it can be almost any type of sugar. Here in, we make ethanol here in Iowa out of corn, but it can be anything. It can be beets, it can be honey. You give it enough time in a closed container, you're going to get alcohol and carbon dioxide. You bleed off the carbon dioxide, but this is going to run to fruition until there's so much alcohol within your container that the yeast can no longer live. So it's at that point that they die. That's when fermentation stops. So this part of the process by itself is pretty incredible. There's actually a gentleman named John Arnault, and he chronicled the life in a book called The Origin and History of Beer, the life of Saint Arnold, who was the patron saint of brewing. And this guy was a monk back in about 900 AD. And he was the first guy to recognize that his rich friends that had access to beer and wine weren't dying near as quickly as his poor friends who were drinking water. And just the water supplies were poor. And he figured out that the brewing process did something that kept people alive. So it really became the water of life. That's why we have all these brewing monks now. They actually, as a gift to people, would go brew. They give to themselves so they would stay alive. And it helped people through the Dark Ages. So now we've gone through the brewing process. This is a distillation rig, and you could drink the beer as it was from the first fermentation process. But with distillation, you can really take what's now called a beer or wash and create something much more concentrated. So it can be a disinfectant. You can actually create biofuel with it, which is what I use it for. So distillation rigs come in all sizes and setups, but these things are really basically the same. And what you have here is you've got a container. This is where your beer would come in. You would bring in a large container of your beer, and you would put heat to it. And the whole point is, alcohol tends to evaporate at 173 degrees, while water, which is the other main component that you want to leave behind, doesn't boil until 212 degrees. So if you heat up to 173 but under 212, you actually get pure alcohol vapor. So it'll rise up and come over here into what's called a condensing container. You can see here, you have places for water to run around that tube that actually condenses the vapors, and then you connect it over in the flask. So that at that point, you basically have pure alcohol between 180 and 190 proof, and it's a great fuel. A lot of folks don't know it, but the entire German army, after we cut them off of access to oil in the latter stages of the war, ran their entire machine off alcohol distillers. So all their tanks, everything was running off alcohol. Pretty powerful fuel. So, why do I do it? I often tell folks, there's a gentleman named John Seeger, and he, in 2010, created a book called Biology for Today, where he laid out the types of technologies that have been lost, that people just stopped using at some point. And it really came to be after the fall of the Roman Empire. We forgot how to use soap, how to make soap, how to brew properly, how to distill water, how to make water safe for drinking. And that really set us up for all those problems that occurred during the Dark Ages. So a lot of people died because of it. So for me, it's really about self-reliance. It's about when things like Hurricane Sandy comes in and ruins fresh water supplies, when people are really struggling because they don't have fresh water. We have really simple technologies that could solve that. It's just people no longer in touch with it. So that's really kind of why I do it and why I like it. To kind of wrap up, I'd like to show a clip of one of my favorite elder statesmen here. And if we could go ahead, I think he crystallizes this idea better than what I ever could. True words were never struck. Thank you.
Yay!
Here's